Good evening.
Good evening, guys. So Rahul, let's, without much ado, get started. And if you don't mind, maybe I'll start first with you as Rahul the person.
Okay.
You know, being a great-grandson, grandson, and a son of 3 prime ministers, you know, someone would see your life as of a privileged one. Do you think you've lived a privileged life?
I mean, it depends. It depends which side of the coin you look at. Of course, there are a number of privileges where I sit, but I wouldn't say that I haven't been through a rough ride. I was 14 when my grandmother was assassinated. I used to play badminton with the people who assassinated her. I saw my grandmother die, and then I saw them die. After that, my father's killed. So you live in a particular environment. I'm surrounded by 15 guys from morning, noon, and night. So that's, I mean, I don't think that's a privilege. I think that's quite a hard thing to deal with. But then, life's a balance. You get, you have some privileges, you have some disadvantages. You take what you're dealt.
So 15 guys, bulk of the day. That's almost like being in a house arrest. How many years has been like this for you?
1984.
Wow, ever since. And hats off. You know, I was 14 when I lost my younger brother, my only sibling, and I can only feel how it is. Can I, if you don't mind, take you back to, so when your father was assassinated, where were you and how was it conveyed to you?
We knew basically that Papa was going to die. I mean, we knew Dadi was going to die also. It wasn't something that was not clear to us, because they had, in politics, when you mess with the wrong forces, and if you stand for something, you will die. I mean, that's pretty clear. I've been watching the political system now in India since I've been a little kid, and it was pretty clear to us that, I mean, my grandmother told me she was going to die. And my father, I told him he was going to die.
Oh my goodness.
So
it's amazing. All through that young life.
You asked me the question about the phone call.
Yeah.
I was in Harvard University in Boston, and there was a discussion going on about the election campaign, and we knew that this was going to be a really problematic election campaign, and it was pretty much his last meeting. So we knew that was a problematic meeting. And then a brother of a friend of his called me up and said, I've got some bad news. So then I said, yes. Is he dead? And he said, yes.
You had premonition already.
I was like, thank you. So we in politics, we deal with forces, big forces that are not normally visible. You're dealing with interests, you're dealing with structures that are powerful. And most of the time, they're not visible to the public. And those they can hurt you.
Talking about your time at Harvard that you mentioned, and I learned that you had to study under a different name, etc. And there was this story about the guardian you had, who happened to be an Indian gentleman as well, but you both had to be beat by
psychology.
FBI.
It's a psychology, So I mean, the anecdote you're referring to, when I was in Harvard University, there was this whole security problem. So the FBI guys, I had a guardian in Harvard, and so the FBI guys said, listen, we want to have a chat with you about your security. So I said, okay, I'm used to it. These are quite brutal chats. If someone shoots you, this is what you do, this is how you move, this is where you have to go, this is where we'll be waiting for you. So I had me sitting there, 19 years old, and I had a PhD student, my guardian, sitting there. Well, I said, listen, there's my guardian, should I call him? And they're like, yeah, it's important you call him. So he came. This guy didn't really know what was going on. So we sat down in the room, and then these guys started up, this is what you got to do, and if people come from there, that's what you do. And then, for me, it was normal, and then I looked, and the guardian was crying. So
He was crying.
He was crying. He was crying, and then we walked out of the room, he grabbed my hand, and he said, this is the most evil thing I've ever seen. How can people be like this? So that's the privilege, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's not visible. That's all behind the scenes.
If you don't mind, I want to ask you one more deeper personal question. Have you and your sister forgiven the killer of your father?
We were very upset and hurt, and for many years we were quite angry. But somehow, completely. In fact, completely.
Kudos to you.
Yeah.
Kudos. Coming from the party of Mahatma Gandhi.
See, one day when there's a history, and one realizes that when these events take place, it's collision of ideas, forces, confusion. That's where you get caught. I remember when I saw Mr. Prabhakaran on TV lying dead, I got two feelings. One was, why are they humiliating this man in this way? And second was, I felt really bad for him. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for his kids. And I did that because I understood deeply what it meant to be on the other side of that thing. And so to me, when I see violence, regardless of who it is, I know that there is a human being behind that, there's a family behind that, there's people behind that, there's kids crying behind that. So I think this is something that I've been through a lot of pain to get this. This is something that I consider very valuable. I literally don't hate people. I find it, even my sister, we find it difficult to hate people.
That's great.
I called up Priyanka after I saw this picture. I saw Mr. Prabhakaran, and I said, Priyanka, this is a very strange thing. I'm feeling a bit bad. She's like, why? I said, because he killed Papa. And I'm feeling that I'm not even, I should be happy that he's dead. Why am I not even generating a little bit of happiness inside? And she's like, oh, I'm feeling exactly the same. So my sister and me, we've been through the same experience, so we understand. We vibe together, we understand what these things are.
That's great. Look, two of the greatest Indians, Buddha and Gandhi, and the biggest quality they espoused were forgiveness. Really kudos to you and your sister both to have reached that level. Thank you. Yeah. So maybe I talk a little bit about your sister. So you two really grew up very close with each other. So how deep a relationship has been? Any stories from your childhood with Priyanka?
She's my best friend, basically. And I know, generally I'll be like, Priyanka, if I've got something I'm thinking about or some work stuff, I'd say, Priyanka, what are you thinking? What do you think of this? And I know pretty much 90% of the time, what she says is what I'm saying, and vice versa. So we are because we've been through this thing together, we sort of understand each other.
But both of you would have, during Dadi's time as well as Dad's time, would have seen many global leaders come by and seen.
Yeah.
Anyone who interested you most from those in any which way?
All of them. I mean, all of them have something special. Everybody has something special, you know. Mr. Mandela, I thought, was a unique person. Everybody.
Nelson, of course, as I say again, following the footsteps of Buddha and Gandhiji.
Listen, the thing is, it is the quality of forgiveness. That is the thing. All these people who are special, that's eventually where they go. And you realize that you might be in a terrible conflict with somebody, but actually what's going on is that person is scared and you're scared, and that's what the fight is about. And a conversation is an extremely powerful thing. Even people who you really dislike, or people who dislike you, if you approach them, talk to them, and get a sense of what it is that's disturbing them, you can do a huge amount.
Great.
That's my experience.
Great.
It's underrated. People don't appreciate it, but it's a very powerful thing. And I think this is a quality, to me, out of all the qualities my country has, our country has, this is a central quality. The ability to absorb an idea, to embrace an idea, to disagree with it, not like it, but still accept it. This is the DNA of India.
That makes India special. So rightly said. You know, look, Europe is not even as disparate and as differentiated than India. India has so many languages, so many cultures, so many religions. They are still trying to find a unity together. You guys led it.
I remember one gentleman who had come, and he asked me this question: what do you mean by unity in diversity? Mm-hmm. What is this? How can this be possible? How can something that is not the same, that is different, unite? And this is actually the heart of the Indian idea. You can actually take things which are in disagreement, that are completely different, and unite them.
I would say this is one of the greatest achievements of our founding fathers. The nation was, in 47, built an unfortunate divide, but to be able to still keep India intact and one has been a great achievement. So kudos to Congress for that. On a lighter side, you know, one thing I noticed when I met you and shook hands, that you are incredibly fit. How are you able to keep yourself fit? My excuse is that I'm busy, therefore I keep gaining weight.
No, I'm gaining weight. I'm gaining weight slowly. I'm getting fat. I run a little bit. I do some martial art. I do Aikido, Japanese martial art. Swim, cycle. So I do a little bit of exercise. I try to get a little bit of exercise in every day.
And is that your major chill or major relax time?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. I try to get in the evening an hour or so, 45 minutes. Now I'm finding it difficult. So there's direct connection. The moment that stops, this starts. You know? So.
Okay, now let's move on to the new arena in terms of leadership. And as Sanjeev alluded right in the beginning, you see many of us here are the management graduates. We work in different capacities in organizations. Some of them lead companies and corporations. And you are now the new CEO of this mega corporation, which has had the largest market share for the longest time. And in the recent time has, of course, had major competition from some hard-charging rivals. How do you plan to revive and rejuvenate the party?
The party is basically an idea. It's basically an ideology. And when you move away from the ideology, the party weakens. It's pretty straightforward. So the Congress party has to stand up to certain ideals. The Congress party has a tremendous history, and when the Congress party doesn't stand up to that history, people get confused. And people start to ask the question, are you really that institution? So I think periodically, like all organizations, we sort of make mistakes, and we've done our share of that. So I think the first thing is to set a few rules and say, listen, these 5 or 6 things, if you're in the Congress party, they're non-negotiable. We just will not tolerate this stuff, right? And that's first. Second is, the Congress party has become very inward-looking, and there's a process of opening the door, inviting new people in. Congress party is a institution that is constantly changing. So when sometimes I'll have conversations and people will be like, the Congress party is this and Congress party is that, and actually, this is your institution. This is not, this is the institution, it's an Indian institution. And it's the heritage of our country. And it is an institution that can serve our country hugely. Couple simple things. There is a powerful BJP. You might agree with what they say, you might disagree with what they say, but no one sensible in India will say that no opposition should exist, right? And so the Congress party has to stand up and say, listen, this is what we are offering. We're different. We don't agree with them on these things. We'll contest them on these things. We'll fight them on these things. And this is what we bring to the table. We've got a history of successes. I mean, I can parrot them out. People know them. Giving a plan, a vision, a strategic vision for the next 10 years. I was here, meetings in Singapore, and pretty much everybody said, the globe is changing. China is rising. The United States is there. India's strategy is not clear. Where does India actually stand, not tactically, not in photo ops, but where do you actually stand strategically? And at the highest level, that question is being asked here. So where do we stand strategically? How are we going to take advantage of this huge shift on the planet? What's the vision for education? What's the vision for healthcare? How are we going to compete? We have 50,000 jobs a day being produced in China. India is currently producing 450. Can we continue to produce 450? No. So, India's attention has to be focused on the problem at hand. There's one problem at hand, big. How do you get jobs for our youngsters? So these are the type of things that the Congress would like to place an alternative vision in front of people. And not place a vision that is ours, but have a discussion with you. I mean, this is a great crowd. Have a discussion with you and say, listen, tell us what you think. Tell us what you think our education system should look like. Tell us what you think our healthcare system should look like. How do we get universal healthcare for everybody in India? What's the best way to do it? And then once we have that conversation, we produce a product and say, okay, here it is. Now let's implement this thing. And there too you have a role in playing a part in that.
I'll come to both education and jobs in a meanwhile, but I just want to continue on the whole party and organization. See, in the last innings, 2004 to 2010, pretty much, it was a great ride.
Yeah. Then it broke down.
Singh is the king. was a big catchphrase everywhere, and Mr. Manmohan Singh was doing great in the first 5. Economy grew very well. You guys also opened up things further by RTI and Rega and everything. But there's something happened in 10, 11, that period onwards.
We had a perfect storm. Oil price 140. Internal fight in the Congress party. Generational fight in the Congress party. A older vision, a newer vision, and those just went and collided. And so we were fighting an election. We had this internal conflict going on. We had issues with corruption, and that just came together.
And then, now talking about another elephant in the room, often corruption. Despite the fact that again, we're talking about last innings, you had almost uncorruptible person in Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. I've heard stories of him insisting his daughter was a professor at Delhi University. He insists she takes a taxi, can't take the official car to go back. So on one hand, you had a leader like that, and then also RTI and everything was done. And you also, for the first time, arrested ministers like Kalmadi or Raja or people like Kanimozi and all were put in jail, which is hats off to you guys.
I mean, we have
today I see the 3, or rather big M's are absconding, whether it's Vijay Mallya or it's Mehul Choksi or the 3 Modis. I mean, you did all that, but you have the mark of corruption on your head.
Look, today,
you were seen as corrupt party.
Today, you have the Rafael deal. Mm-hmm. You have Mr. Amit Shah's son. You have the Gujarat Petroleum. But the strategy of the BJP is not to answer. Just, okay, it's happening, and just not to answer. We did the RTI and completely transformed the basic structure. We created transparency throughout the system. And frankly, that hit us, because we dramatically increased the amount of transparency. Our position was, whenever we found out about it, we fired the guy, right? Pretty much every single case, we fired the guy. But I think the message to us was zero tolerance. And that's how we think about it, zero tolerance.
Well, you agree that to some extent corruption did creep into Congress as well, but you are sure now zero tolerance going forward?
100%.
Great. Thank you for that. One other aspect about inter-party politics, we as companies, also as corporations, we compete with each other, particularly with the competition. Like mine, we try to beat Gucci and Chanel every day. But then there are some areas where we try to converge and align to build some collaborative platforms. For example, when we look at counterfeit goods, to fight against that, we get together. Or even to certain things like not using anorexic models in photo shoots, and also we do. In political life, can we not find some common platforms like pure air or pure water or urban infrastructure, where we have common party platforms and work together?
There's a fundamental difference between our view of India and the BJP's view of India. Okay, we believe that everybody should be carried. They believe everybody need not be carried. The gap is just too big. They won't talk to us about it, we won't talk to them about it. So that's just a vertical line, and that's probably the first time in Indian politics that vertical line is there. And that's a vertical line between the BJP and pretty much every other party. So there's no discussion. Our problem is, when we approach the BJP on things like GST, they just don't talk to us. So on land acquisition bill, we approached them and said, listen, there's room here for getting a better product. No. And that was the same with the GST. We in fact told them that please don't do this 5-tier GST. This is going to be bad. Don't have a 28% tax. They said no. So their design is not to converse. That's problematic. And this is not only with us. This is a complaint that BJP ministers have. BJP leadership has this issue with the Prime Minister himself.
Is this akin to what we have in corporations, that one guy wants to decide everything, and at times it can move faster, but it is...
In politics, my experience is, in India, if you don't carry people, you won't get the job done. It's just, there's no way. You know, you have to build a consensus, you have to carry people, and if you don't do that, there's no play.
Coming to issues, you talked about education. Now, we certainly have a huge issue that on one hand, larger number of people by millions are coming into our working force. But they're broadly divided into either they are uneducated, or they're unemployed, or they're unemployable. Because education, today, a 6th grader with certificate can't read a 2nd grade story. They can't even tell 40% of them what the capital of India is. Now, that's one issue. On the higher education, again, last 15 years, 5,500 colleges were opened. Means one a day almost. But again, a lot of quantity, very low quality. What is your vision of education? What kind of education system we need to bring in so we can really give skills to these guys?
The Gujarat campaign was quite interesting. There was the discussion in Gujarat campaign was Gujarat's privatized 90% of its higher education. So that's not a design that we follow. We believe that there has to be a space for public institutions. There has to be a space for government institutions that would set a benchmark, a quality parameter. The best institutions in India today, they're government institutions. So that's one aspect. I think scaling them up, and I think giving them much more autonomy than they have. Political control of these institutions doesn't help at all. Ideological control of these institutions doesn't help. So I would push a much more liberal, sort of free liberal system. I would also put in significantly more money. The BJP has reduced the amount they spend on education and health, so I would put a lot more money in education and health. Primary education, during our time, we were very successful actually. We raised schooling rates almost to 90%. But next step, there was revolution on kids going to school, midday meal scheme and other things. But the next generation is quality, raising the quality of all those schools. But you can't do that without a robust public sector school system, robust public sector higher education system. That, if you remove that, I think you break the backbone. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a place for private institutions. So there should be a place for private institutions. They have their role, but both should play.
You just mentioned earlier about the difference between China and India on employment. They're generating 50,000 jobs. And China has followed a huge manufacturing model, which was followed by Japan and Korea and Taiwan as well. We, on the other hand, are now getting 1 million people every month in jobs. The government says they're employing 250,000. Maybe real numbers are much lower.
No, government numbers in Parliament, given by their minister, is 1 lakh last year across the country.
Wow. So this means millions are walking into same pool of unemployment. So when this berozgari will end for these guys, what kind of things we could do that we can employ these millions and millions who are out of jobs today?
In fact, my hypothesis, and it's a hypothesis that resonates quite well with even the people in Singapore who I had a chat with about it, is that the anger that is being generated in India is basically because of jobs. Not enough jobs are being created. Right? So, to me, jobs are going to come from small and medium businesses. Jobs are going to come from transforming agriculture, building a cold chain, putting technology into the farm. Jobs are going to come by financing small and medium companies. Bulk of our banking finance today goes to the top 10, 15 companies. Goes to nobody else. And there's a huge banking problem. So to me, the real job creators are the small and medium guys, and they are, frankly, in India today, they're orphans. They don't get any protection. They have no political access. If you're a promoter of a big company, you walk right through the doors, through Parliament, finance minister's office. You're a little guy? No way. And on top of that, over the last 2 years, small and medium has been devastated by GST and demonetization. Right? Badly implemented GST and demonetization, I fail to understand anyway.
No, great. I think small, medium enterprises is the way to go because we have much larger numbers that manufacturing today will not be able to absorb in big ways.
Part of the discussion that we've had here is about the old manufacturing system, the big 50,000, 100,000 manufacturing system being disturbed, challenged by fourth generation manufacturing techniques. I think that's going to be an advantage for India. So if you are able to align those manufacturing techniques with our small and medium businesses and connect them with finance, I believe you can actually compete with China and take them on.
That's great. Thank you. Talking of another big part of our country, which is our farmers. You know, almost half of the country is involved somewhere in farming. And farmers, poor guys, always in a gamble between monsoon and moneylenders. You know, somebody said that in a year when it's bad monsoon and the government doesn't help, the government doesn't have a heart. But in a year when monsoon is great and harvest is good and still farmer can't earn, the government doesn't have brain. Last year was the highest harvest and still we had a fairly bad growth. So farm income grew only by 2%. Now we plan to double it in 5 years. That means you need to grow by 12% per annum for 2 today. How could this happen? Why just give a pipe dream to poor guys?
No, the farming in India, I've actually gone to farmers in Uttar Pradesh and I've sat down with them and actually done the math. So, you know, how much money do you put into the farm? How much money do you get out of the farm? And it's pretty much impossible to make money being a farmer in India today. So the central idea is that without government support, without government protection, farmers simply cannot survive. And that's something you just have to keep in mind. People are moving off the farm, going to the urban area and then coming back on to the farm. And this is a process that they do every couple of months. So the farm for them is almost like a safety, a safe haven. So you're going to have to modernize the farm. You're going to have to inject technology into the farm. And then a lot of these people are actually going to get out of the farm. But when they get out of the farm, they need to actually go into the manufacturing system. So right now what's happening is the farm's not producing money and the manufacturing system isn't firing. Make in India is I completely agree with the idea. My problem with it is pretty much every district in India has skills. And success would be if you take those skills and you connect money, technology into those skills networks, old skill networks. So that's where the Make in India is, in my mind, badly conceptualized. Make in India is sitting here, but it's not connected to the skill base in India. And then you're just dead in the water.
Great.
So if I was to conceptualize Make in India, I would go to every district and I would say, okay, what is the skill base here? And then I would grow that skill base using injection of finance and technology. That's how I would conceptualize it. And that, by the way, is a huge part of how it was done in China.
It is. Well, I can relate to one thing from my world in LVMH, that India has a major center. For example, today the highest selling fragrance is oud based. Almost all of it comes from few districts in Assam. Almost all crystals come from few districts in UP. Almost all embroidery work around the world, including brands like Dior and all, used from 4 districts from Bihar and UP. All these guys, if you can get right help, they can be world beaters, generally world beaters. Our craftsmen are phenomenal.
Yeah.
They really generally can be.
So, you know, it's Muradabad, Mirzapur, Surat, Sivakasi. Every single district has something, some traditional skill there. but you're not connecting it to the globe. And I think that's the missing piece. If you connect that skill base to technology, money, and the market, you're done.
Power to you all. I hope we can get there. And because, again, for sari weaving itself, for example, there are 13 major centers. Each one is amazing. And those products can be phenomenally world-class. Some of them do Hermes quality products. We just need to get all that help. Now let me move to another. Please.
Just one connection between our IT skill base and the world has transformed India, right? I would say let's find 3 or 4 more like that over the next 10 years, and let's actually implement them. That would be something that I would be interested in.
That's great. Now, talking of IT, I would like to just maybe take a minute of detour and thank Mr. Sam Petroda, who's here with us, someone who really built the whole IT industry in India. I learned about a story when Mr. Gorbachev came to India and Mr. Petroda wanted to sell him 1 million computers, reached out to Nandan. Nandan and all did not even have an office in Infosys. There were 5 people without office. He was driven from those days. It's great. I think if we can bring 5 such ideas, it'll be fantastic.
And I'll tell you what one of them is.
Please.
In my mind. To me, healthcare, diagnostics, health data, genetics, our hospital system, if these things are properly connected and you put in place a strategy, I think you can dominate global healthcare. So to me what was sort of the Maruti concept in the automobile industry, to me what we should be saying is, okay, what are the 3 or 4 areas? Healthcare is one of them. What are the 3 or 4 areas where we can do this and then just get the thing done? We've done it before.
You move to another segment again. Half of our country are women. You know, one big thing of communist China was that Chairman Mao and his whole revolution brought almost 86% women into economic activity. In India, that number is just about 1/3. And today, forget about bringing them economic activity. We are not able to even keep our women safe. With the number of rapes all around and whatnot today, when a woman says, is it safe to go back to India? That's really a shame in the country. What do you convey to a woman here as a message to them that how India can keep not only women safe, but then can bring them an economic activity and make them a turbocharging?
First of all, there is a culture issue, right? So violence has a little bit to do with the culture and the way you view women. But from my perspective, political empowerment, Panchayati Raj, we did reservation for women, and we're going to do reservation for women in Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha. I've already decided and I've told my party people that I want to see rooms 50-50. I mean, it's a huge ask in a political environment, but I've said that, this business of 10 people and one woman, this doesn't work. And we can't just be neglecting them. So I'm looking forward to as many candidates and leaders. That's what I'm actively promoting.
I'm being told that we are running out of time. I'll just ask quickly 2 other big questions. And again, this is also often an elephant in the room, and people try to avoid any discussion on this subject. Our country in 1947, unfortunately, got divided in name of religion. Millions died and tens of millions got displaced. And it left phenomenal scar. But those divisive forces are once again rising not only in India, but in US and many other places as well. India has always been an example for its pluralism. India has always been that idea, that concept that stood taller than every other nation. Now, today, we are once again really fracturing that part. How do you as a leader will keep that pluralism aspect of our country alive and keep it intact so that we can stay an example to the whole world?
I think, as I said earlier, a rejuvenated, open Congress party with youngsters, with fresh faces, with open doors that people can be proud of, that they can look at and say, I want to join that thing. So I think that's one very important piece. I think we have a role actually in keeping people together. We're fighting a battle with the BJP. Look, unfortunately, and this is something that's seen all over the world, today dividing people gives you political benefits, but then it has costs. The costs are not visible today, but the costs will become visible, and they are actually huge costs, dangerous costs. You're weakening the country by doing that. So we will fight it, but to me the best instrument is if I can come back here 6 months from now, a year from now, and 20-30 of you guys say to me, listen, I want in and I want to help you transform this thing. So that's, to me, that's my job, and I got to do that.
Oh, that's a great idea. On that note, just quickly, last two questions. One is that, here, this is an August gathering of non-resident Indians. There are 32 million non-resident Indians. And there was a good move in your previous innings to start NRI government, etc., but now that's been abandoned and merged. NRIs in US, UK, even Indonesia get to vote. How come we Indian don't get to vote and participate, despite being 32 million of us?
That is there. But listen, Congress party is actually a party that began with NRIs. All our top leadership was NRIs. So that's just the way it is. I lived abroad for 10, 11 years. So NRIs have a particular view of the world. They have a fresh view of the world. A lot of times, when you're in India and you don't go outside, you don't see what's going on in the rest of the world. So I consider all of you to be an asset, and I'm gonna come and chase you and say, listen, come and help us. I'm not gonna make it so easy, because you have a role to play, and you actually have the skills that can do this. Skills like yours are lacking in the political system. We have a skills shortage there, and you can help us.
Thank you. Last question. Let's say 10 years from now, we are seated here again, and probably you as Prime Minister. What kind of India will we be talking about at that point in time in your mind, 10 years from now?
There are currently on the planet 2 visions. There is a American vision, there is a Chinese vision. I would like people on the planet to say there's a third way to do it, the Indian way.
Right.
And I actually think that the way we're going, there's going to be a clash of these 2 visions. And India has a role in making sure that these 2 visions don't collide. India has a role in saying, actually, the world needs to be a peaceful place. Ahimsa has to be the backbone of the planet. And I think only India actually can play that role. So I don't view our role as subservient to anybody. I don't think that we should view an India which bends to anybody or is pushed around by anybody. We don't want to push people around, but nobody is going to push us around either. So I think that would be you would require a ideological vision. You require to tell the world what actually India is, what there is inside India. And today when the world looks at India, they say, you guys talk to us about non-violence, you guys talk to us about peace. What's going on in your home? So we are actually hampering our ability to play that role. We are, I mentioned Mr. Mandela. Mr. Mandela told me himself that I was inspired by your country. I was inspired by your people. I was inspired by so many people getting together, standing up as one and throwing out the British. That's why I did what I did. I wouldn't have done it without that. So we've been an inspiration for Martin Luther King, for Mr. Mandela, and we haven't been an inspiration because we were being violent, because we were being nasty to each other. We were an inspiration because people said, look at this complex place. And wow, look at this amazing place that just lives happily, embraces each other and moves on. So that's the type of place I'd like to see.
Great. Let's hope for that one India, united India that inspires the whole world.
Thank you.
On that note, Rahul, thank you very much. Thank you. It's really a pleasure. Just one small thing before you go. Instead of giving you flowers for yourself,
okay,
we have a small gift for you to take for someone. Let me just show you.
That's very nice.
Yeah. So this is not for you.
Yeah, I know.
So this is for your mom.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. Maybe
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. May I please call Mr. Sanjeev Iyer on the stage?
Thank you.
We need to run here.
Can
Sanjeev, I think let's...
Yeah, I know we are short on time, so I'd just like to say a quick thank you to Rahul and to Ravi and to all of you. There are a number of people who have put this together, but anyway, we are really running short on time. Can I have where are the flowers?
So they do want to give you some flowers as well. Please.
Maybe Thank you so much.
I'm family, don't worry about me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, one other thing, I know a number of you had lots of questions and many of them could not be asked. So if I could ask you, Rahul, we'll send you the questions, and if you could...
Sam, are we completely out of time? I mean, can we not do one or two questions?
There are actually a ton of questions.
Huh? I would love to continue. क्या हो जाएगा?
That's a great attitude.
Take the next slide. Okay, we take the next slide.
All right, great.
Hey. Come on.
Five questions.
Thank you, Milind. Sorry for...
5 questions, come on. Five.
Okay. So, again, I've got various questions here. So let me just start with one question. You talked about this. On one hand, all the measures been taken.
Are you going to ask or they're going to ask?
They've come here on the screen. But why not? We can do that. That's a great idea. So what we use is normally a system called pigeonhole. Everybody sends questions,
okay.
Then they get voted,
okay.
And then the highest voted question gets asked.
Okay.
That's just typical.
Fine.
Internal democracy.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we really follow it to the T. So basically, a couple of questions which I had not picked up for lack of time. One is about inclusiveness. On one hand, our country has so many poor, but rich are getting richer. And we see cases of $1 billion home right in the middle of slum. Isn't it a bit crass? And we are still not getting our inclusiveness right?
It's crass and it's dangerous. So you generate a lot of anger when a poor person sees that. And it's unfair. We tried with Narega, we tried with these instruments, but we got a real hammering for some of that work. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but Narega it's a handout to poor people, it's a horrible thing, it should be stopped. And then some economists came to me a couple of months back and said, we noticed something very interesting. What did you notice? We noticed that Narega actually triggered a massive rural growth. And actually a vast amount of the growth that we saw in 2008, 2009 was Narega, because you injected money directly into the village. So That's actually the thinking behind education, scaling up education. Universal healthcare. Make sure that people have a floor to stand on, that they can't fall below that floor. Narega was a minimum wage. It was actually the successful implementation of a minimum wage, the biggest successful implementation of a minimum wage on the planet in history. So we put a floor under every single person. But we paid a price. People are angry.
Thank you. One other question. You were in Singapore last couple of days and you met with various leaders in Singapore. What were your key points of exchange, and any suggestions to, Singapore is also the largest investor in India. Any suggestions to the leadership or any requests to leadership from your side as Indian leader?
No, I mean, they are a very impressive bunch. First, I'd like to say that I meet people from many, many different countries, and the Singaporeans are right up there, extremely talented.
Kudos to Singapore.
I mean,
thank you.
Very, 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 very impressive. So that's there. We had general conversations about what's going on in India, what are the type of things they can do, investments, some complaints, things aren't moving fast enough, that type of stuff, general conversations. But I don't want to get into sort of specifics of the conversations that I held. That
no, sure,
for
sure not. Did you get to see any bit of Singapore at all?
No, from my hotel room.
Okay. So Mr. Pitroda and everyone put you in a very tough schedule.
Yeah, they've had me running non-stop here.
Do we want to give one or two questions to the floor so that there's a real sense of floor asking a question? Let's take the gentleman right here in the front. Okay, Gagan.
Sir, I'm a banker, so the economy is close to my heart. You were just mentioning the India wave, and can you spend a few minutes just talking about it? It was very interesting, but we'd like to just get to hear a little more of you on that.
The India wave meaning?
On the building up a next IT wave, or
right.
The next skill set that would get the India to rise together. So you're talking of 4 or 5 which you have in mind. If you don't mind, just talking a little bit about it.
Healthcare data, right? So the way I look at it, data is going to be the backbone of healthcare, of the healthcare system. That means MRI, X-rays, all diagnostics, all cures, when they're put together on computers, you will be able to cure people based on people who have already been cured. So to me, that is the space where we have a huge advantage. Today, all our healthcare data is just lost, right? It's like you have oil and you're just throwing it away. So developing systems and processes that actually allow you to manage that data, that allow you to capture that data, and then allow you to utilize that data. I envision India being able to use its data, not today, but 10, 15, 20 years from today, to actually run its entire healthcare system. To me, data is like oil, and we got the largest amount of it. China has, and we have. So thinking about how you put all this stuff together, how do you think about healthcare data? What do you do with it? What are the rules? Who owns it? Those are the type of things that 10 years, if you take the right decisions now, 10 years from today, you'll get a revolution. The telecoms revolution was basically a little box, right? It was a little rural exchange. Nobody understood what that thing was until you started to see it. But you saw it quite a long while after it was actually conceptualized. So I think now we should be thinking about these things. What is going to be our strategy on electric cars, right? I was in Norway some time back. Electric cars are basically taking over Scandinavian countries. How are we thinking about it? Are there things that we can do that would actually make us a player? Not at the tactical level, at the strategic level. What are the laws we need to change, right? So, who owns healthcare data? That's a huge question, which can completely transform our healthcare system. Those will be some of the things.
On healthcare, one point I want to mention, even though China may have larger number of people, given our genetic diversity, our data is far richer and therefore can be far more relevant. No, great for you to think of that as a great idea.
Today, when a doctor cures someone, it's his memory that you're utilizing to cure the person. Tomorrow, when a doctor cures someone, it'll be a computer that you'll be using to cure someone. That computer's got to have past data in it. We're going to be the one who have the most. And so that to me is like gold. But we're not thinking about that right now. Right now the gold is lying around, it's on the floor, it's in some hospital somewhere, and the government of India is not saying, okay, how do we take this gold and actually utilize it for our country? It's like in the good old days when the British went to Saudi Arabia and paid King of Saudi Arabia, they gave him a car and then exchanged an oil contract. If you don't know the value of what you have in your hands, right, you'll be giving it away for free. And today actually, because we're not thinking along those lines, we're literally giving it away for free. So that would be one example. I'm going to miss my flight now, so I better run. I'm going to be in trouble.
Rahul, we could go on and on,
Thank you.
but it was a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
We will love to have you for a longer time next time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
friend.
you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Gandhi and Mr. Thakran.